Alaikum salam.
Alaikum salam.
Okay, today we'll study one more important topic, that is the anatomy of the stomach. So in this lecture, we'll not only study the anatomy, also some development of the stomach itself. So these are the objectives. Describe the anatomy of the stomach, which includes the location, shape, parts, relation, blood supply, nerve supply, lymphatic drainage, as well as some applied aspects related to that part. Then also we'll discuss briefly the development of the stomach. So when we study the stomach, we should know that the stomach is a part of the alimentary tract, and it is the most dilated part. It is said to be the most dilated part of the whole uh, canal, the alimentary canal or the tract or the gastrointestinal tract, which is a long tube. Okay, starting from the pharynx up to the anal canal. So it's a long tube. So in this part, the stomach is said to be, here is the stomach. We can see here the stomach. So it is said to be the most dilated part of this alimentary canal. If you want to locate it, now we know the 9 quadrants. So you should be able to locate it in the 9 quadrants. So it will be seen in the partly in the 4 upper quadrant, that is the left hypochondrium, as well as the epigastrium, umbilical, as well as the right the left flank, that is uh, where we can trace this whole of the stomach. Okay. It extends from beneath the left costal region. As you can see here, these are the costa, these are the ribs. So this is the costal margin. Okay, so where the ribs end, and here this is the costal cartilage, and here is the ribs. So this is called as the left costal margin. So it extends from beneath the left costal region into the epigastric as well as the umbilical vein. As we saw, it will be seen partly in the epigastric as well as even in the umbilical region. And much of the stomach is protected by the lower ribs. As you can see here, the lower ribs as well as the costal cartilage, the costal margin, deep inside that will be the stomach. So it is well protected, especially the funding part as well as the upper part of the body of the stomach will all covered, and it is well protected by the ribs and the costal cartilages. If we see the shape, it looks like a roughly a J shape in the English capital letter, that is the J. It looks like J when it is empty. When it is empty, it looks like a J shaped structure. Coming to the parts, so this will contain the two orifices, two borders, two surfaces, three parts, and the part of pylorus, which has again two parts. Okay, anyhow, so it has two orifices. Orifice means openings. One is from the esophagus into the stomach. So this is called as the cardiac orifice. Cardiac orifice. Okay, then we have the second orifice where it opens into the duodenum. That is called as the pyloric orifice. So there are two orifices, two openings. One is at the upper end, that is called as the cardiac orifice, where the esophagus opens into the stomach, and the lower orifice where the stomach opens into the duodenum. That is called as the pyloric orifice. There are two orifice openings. Then there are two borders. One is the right border, this is called as the lesser curvature, and this left border is called as the greater curvature. Okay, so because it is not straight but curved, so it is called as curvature. Greater because it is bigger compared to the lesser. So lesser means the smaller one, the little one or the smaller one. So the right border is called as the lesser curvature, and the left border is called as the greater curvature depending on the size. Then there are two surfaces. One is the anterior surface, what you are seeing here in the front, and the other one which will be behind, that will be called as the posterior surface. So it has two surfaces, anterior surface and posterior surface. So two orifice, cardiac and pyloric, two curvatures, lesser curvature and the greater curvature, then two surface, anterior and posterior. Now coming to the three parts of the stomach. So the stomach is divided into mainly three parts. The part which is above the opening of this cardiac orifice, whatever part is there, that is called as the fundus. This is the fundus. Usually this will be filled with air. Whenever you take an X-ray, so this fundic part will be just below the left dome of the diaphragm. So just below the heart. So it is very in very close relation to the heart, and you can see whenever you take an X-ray, so you can see this part will be seen as black colored area because it will be filled with air. Then we have the body. This is the body here. Okay. Then we have the pyloric part. This whole thing will be called as the pyloric part. Okay. So the pylorus is divided again into three parts. The pyloric antrum. So here you can see this whole thing, as I said, is the pylorus. So this is called as the pyloric antrum. Okay. Then this is called as the pyloric canal, and the end where it ends and begins with the duodenum, there is a sphincter here. This is called as the pyloric sphincter. So here is the esophageal or the cardiac sphincter, and here is the pyloric sphincter. Okay. So as you know, the sphincters will help in the regurgitation of the food particles. Okay, and they try to prevent the backflow, that is regurgitation, and they allow unidirectional flow. Okay, that is the function of the sphincters. Okay, so coming to again repeating the parts, this is the fundus, which is above the cardiac orifice. This larger part is called as the body, and this is called as the pylorus. Pylorus has three parts: pyloric antrum, pyloric canal, which looks like a tube, and then it opens into the duodenum. This is called as there is a sphincter here called as the pyloric sphincter. Now, coming to the cardiac orifice, this is a very important orifice opening because there is a sphincter here, and right now you have studied the case one where the sphincter had a very important role to play. So that's why this cardiac orifice plays a very important role in the, especially in the clinical aspect. So this is the site of gastroesophageal sphincter, as I said before. So this orifice, this opening orifice is the opening where the esophagus opens into the stomach, and there within the wall, the muscles become thicker. As you know, you might have studied the histology where this will have four layers. One of the layer is the muscular layer, musculosa, where the muscle becomes much more thicker and acts as a sphincter. Okay, so it is the site of gastroesophageal sphincter. It is a physiological sphincter. Okay, it is a physiological sphincter because it is not anatomical, because you cannot see much here. Okay, anatomically, but physiologically because it functions as a sphincter, so it has a more role physiological. So it is called as the physiological sphincter rather than an anatomical sphincter. Anatomically, you don't see much here when you see from the outside. Consists of circular layer of smooth muscles controlled by the vagus and the hormones. As you know, you might have studied already that the musculosa in the esophagus is partly uh, smooth as well as partly it is skeletal. Especially in the upper part, it will be skeletal and it is voluntary, and the lower part will be smooth, so it is involuntary. So this will be controlled, especially this sphincter, because it is smooth layer here, smooth muscle layer. So it is mainly controlled by the autonomic nervous system. That is the vagus nerve. Okay, vagus nerve plays an important role here. Okay. Then also some of the hormones play in the sphincter. Coming to the functions, so this sphincter, as I said before, it prevents the backflow or the esophageal reflux. It is called as esophageal reflux or the regurgitation of the food particles which are in the stomach. Whenever the stomach moves and crunches the food at that time, so this sphincter closes so that there will be no regurgitation of food particles, as well as even the HCl which is produced here, the gastric juices. Okay, so if it goes, then there will be irritation of the lower part of the esophagus, which leads to heartburn and other things. Now coming to the fundus. As I said, the fundus is that part which is above the cardiac orifice. It is dome shape, as you can see here. It is dome shape, located to the left of the cardiac orifice, just towards the left of the cardiac orifice, usually full of gases. It is not gases, gases. Yes, there should be GASES. Okay, so it is full of gases, and it reaches to the left fifth intercostal space, a little below the apex of the heart. So it reaches very close to that of the apex of the heart. Okay, coming to the body. So this large part, this is called as the body. Okay. Extends from the level of the fundus to the level of the incisura angularis. Incisura angularis, this is an angulation in the lesser curvature which you see here. So this is called as the incisura angularis. So it is a constant notch on the lesser curvature. Always you see an angulation here. So this is called as the incisura angularis. From there, if you draw a line, this is how it looks like. Okay, so this is the level of the incisura angularis, and this is below the fundus. This whole area is called as the body of the stomach. Then coming to the lesser curvature. As I said, lesser curvature is called a lesser curvature. It is because it is shorter, okay, and forms the right border of the stomach. It is the right border of the stomach, extends from the cardiac orifice to the pyloric orifice. As you can see here, it extends from this is the cardiac orifice all the way up to the pyloric orifice. So this is the extent of the lesser curvature. So this is attached to the liver by a peritoneal fold called as the lesser omentum. If you see here, there is connection between the liver and the stomach. This is the fold here of peritoneum. This is called as the lesser omentum, also called as the gastrohepatic ligament. Gastrohepatic ligament. Okay. So it has actually two parts. If you see here, this is the lesser omentum, which is between the stomach and the liver. This is called as the hepatogastric or gastrohepatic, both are same. And here, which is partly related to the duodenum, that is called as the hepatoduodenal ligament. So this whole thing is called as the lesser omentum. So lesser omentum is attached to a lesser curvature and connecting with that of the liver. Then coming to the greater curvature of stomach. So this is the greater, as the name indicates, it is larger, longer. So that's what is called as the greater curvature. It is from the left border of the stomach, extend from the cardiac orifice. This also extends from the cardiac orifice to the pylorus all the way. If you see here, so it will extend from the cardiac orifice up to the pylorus. Its upper part is attached to the spleen by the gastrosplenic ligament. If you see here, this is the spleen here. So these two are connected by a fold of peritoneum, and this forms a ligament. This is called as the gastrosplenic ligament. Very important ligament. Then its lower part is attached to the transverse column by the great omentum. Here, if you see here, this is the transverse column. You can partly see. So this transverse colon is connected to the greater curvature by a thin fold of peritoneum filled with lot of fat. This is called as the greater omentum. This is also called as the policeman of the abdomen. Policeman of the abdomen. Why? You'll study again about it later in pathology and other areas. Okay. So this is called as the greater omentum filled with huge quantity of fat. So most of the belly fat is because of this great omentum having huge quantity of fat. It is stored fat there. Okay. The pyloric antrum. Now coming to the pyloric antrum extends from the incisura angularis to the pylorus. As we saw here, this is called as the pyloric antrum. Extends from the incisura, that is the angulation here. This is called as incisura angularis up to the pyloric canal here. So this is the pyloric canal. So this whole thing is called as the pyloric antrum. Pylorus is a tubular part of the stomach. So pylorus is the tubular part of the stomach. Here stomach is large, huge, but here it becomes tubular in shape. It lies in the transpyloric plane at the level of L1, 1 centimeter to the right of the midline. If you draw a line, midline, the center, so it will be on the right side, more towards the right side, almost to 1 centimeter towards the right. Okay. So it has a thick muscular end called as the pyloric sphincter. So if you see here in this picture, it is much more clearer. So that if you see here as it comes where it ends and continues as the duodenum, there the muscle again becomes thick, and this is called as the pyloric sphincter. Okay. The cavity of the pylorus is the called as the pyloric canal. So the cavity here it becomes tubular in shape, and this is called as the pyloric canal. Now coming to the some important relations of the stomach, which are very important clinically. So you should know what are the relations, anterior as well as posterior relation. If you want to do any kind of surgeries about the stomach, then you should know the some of the important relations. So anteriorly, as you know, there will be the anti-abdominal wall, then the left costal margin. If you see here, so the left costal margin has been cut. Okay, if not, it will cover almost all this part. So, but here you can see the rib, it will continue here. Okay, so but here it is cut, so that you can appreciate the stomach. So anteriorly, it will be covered by the anti-abdominal wall, which is cut here, as well as even the left costal margin is also cut here. Okay. Then the left pleura above, if you see here, there will be lung as well as the pleura. So both the pleura and the lung will enter into a recess in the front here. Okay, costo-mediastinal recess. So it will be so anteriorly there will be also a part of the pleura as well as the left lung. Then the diaphragm itself. This is the diaphragm. So this is the right dome. This is the left dome. Okay, and a part of it extends both anteriorly as well as posteriorly. So the diaphragm also has a important relation. Then the left lobe of the liver. If you see here, this is the liver. Right lobe is on the right side, but the left lobe enters towards the left side and even covers anteriorly part of the stomach. So if you see this picture, previous picture, if you see, it has been lifted up so that you can appreciate the stomach. If not, it will anteriorly the stomach is covered by the left lobe of the liver. So anteriorly, that is also there. So these are some of the important relations of the stomach anteriorly. Then now going to the posterior relations. Posterior relations of the stomach, they are also called as the stomach bed because they form the bed for the stomach so that the stomach can lie down on that bed. So here if you see the stomach has been removed so that you can appreciate what are the structures which will form the stomach bed. One is the left crust of the diaphragm. As I said, the diaphragm both will form anterior relation as well as posterior relation. So here you can see the left crust of the diaphragm, which form the posterior relation. Then the left suprarenal gland. If you see here, this is the kidney, and above that will be the left suprarenal gland. Here is the left suprarenal gland. This is the left crust. This is the left suprarenal gland. Then the part of the left kidney, a part of the left kidney. Then if you see, there will be the spleen. If you see this the spleen here, which also forms the stomach bed. Then the splenic artery. Here, if you see, this is the splenic artery, which is supplying the spleen as well as the kidney. The stomach. Both the stomach as well as the spleen are supplied by the splenic artery. So here you can see the splenic artery. Then we have the pancreas. If you see, this is the pancreas here, which is horizontally placed, that also forms the posterior relation or the stomach bed. Then the transverse colon. Below, if you see here, this is the transverse colon, which also partly forms the stomach bed. Then the transverse mesocolon. Mesocolon is the fold of peritoneum which is covering the transverse colon. This is the mesocolon and this is the transverse colon. Both form the posterior relation of the stomach of the kidney. The stomach of the posterior relation of the stomach. Okay, then the lesser sac itself also form the posterior relation of the stomach. So all the structures form the stomach bed or the posterior relation of the stomach. So starting from the left crus of the diaphragm, as you saw here, then the left suprarenal gland, then the left kidney, then the spleen, then the pancreas, then the transverse mesocolon, then the transverse colon, lesser sac, everything. All these form the stomach bed or the posterior relation. So all these structures are separated from the stomach by the peritoneum of the lesser sac, except the spleen, which is separated by the greater sac. This you can appreciate much more better when you study the peritoneum itself. Okay, so always remember that all the structures are not in direct contact with the posterior surface of the stomach, but there is in between, there is a cavity of the lesser sac.
Doctor, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
The mesocolon is the ligament or membrane?
It is a peritoneal fold. Peritoneal fold. It is not called as a ligament. Ligament is that part where it is the peritoneal fold is thickened up, and which has some role in holding the organ. Okay. Here, even though it has some role to play to hold the transverse colon, but it is a very thin fold of peritoneum. Okay. So it is the thin membrane. That's all. Nothing else. It is not a ligament.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Now coming to the arterial supply, the blood supply. Okay. So if you study that to study the blood supply of the whole of the gastrointestinal system, you should know that the whole of the gastrointestinal system is divided into three parts. Either it will be the foregut, midgut, and hindgut. That you will study when you study the development of the stomach. So of the whole of the GIT. So if you know that from starting from the esophagus up to the second part of duodenum, this whole part is called as the foregut, including the stomach. Okay, so below that part, second part of duodenum, up to the transverse colon, that will be called as the midgut, and starting from the left one third of the transverse colon up to the sigmoid colon, this whole thing is called as the hindgut. So the whole of the GIT is divided into three parts: foregut, midgut, and hindgut. So as I said, stomach belongs to the foregut. So each part of this gut, foregut, midgut, and hindgut has a specific artery. So if you know the development of each part, then you know the arterial supply. So the artery for the foregut will be the celiac trunk. So here is the celiac artery, celiac trunk. So usually it is called as celiac trunk because it is a very short artery. As soon as it begins, it divides into many branches. So it becomes very short, so it looks like a trunk. Okay, so that's why it is called as the celiac trunk. So as I said, as the stomach develops from the foregut, it receives blood from the celiac trunk. So here you can see this is the celiac artery, or it is also usually called as the celiac trunk. The celiac trunk gives rise to three branches. The left gastric artery. So if you see here, this is the left gastric artery. Then we have the hepatic artery. If you see, this is the hepatic artery. Then the splenic artery. This is the splenic artery going and supplying the not only the spleen but also the stomach. So these are the three branches from the celiac artery. So most of these, all the three branches will supply the stomach. So because the stomach is developed from the foregut. Okay. So if you know the development, as I said, the artery for the foregut will be the celiac trunk. Okay. So all the parts which are developing from the foregut will be supplied by the celiac trunk. Stomach is also part of it, so it is supplied by the celiac trunk. Okay. So which are the arteries which are coming from this celiac trunk, and how they will supply? So there are five branches which will supply the stomach. The first one is the left gastric artery, as we saw, direct branch from the celiac trunk. It will be supplying especially it will come towards the lesser curvature, and it will be supplying that part of the stomach. Then, so as I said, this is the branch of the celiac artery. As I said, again it runs along the lesser curvature. Then the second artery is called as the right gastric artery. If you see here one more artery, so this is called as the right gastric artery. So it is a branch from the hepatic artery. As you can see here, this is the hepatic artery, which is also from the celiac trunk, gives a branch which again runs along the lesser curvature. This is called as the right gastric artery. Both the right and left gastric artery, they anastomose, okay, and supply the all the region around the lesser border, the lesser curvature or the right border of the stomach. So these are the two arteries, first two arteries, the right and left gastric artery. Then going to the other three arteries, the third artery, it is not a single artery, but many branches, which are called as the short gastric arteries. If you see here, especially near the fundus and upper part of the body, there are multiple arteries. So these are very short arteries, so they are called as the short gastric arteries, arising from the splenic artery, again coming from the celiac artery. Okay, so this will give multiple branches which will supply the fundus as well as the upper part of the body. So these are called as the short gastric artery, arise from the splenic artery, pass in the gastrosplenic ligament. Then the fourth artery is called as the left gastroepiploic artery. If you see here, same splenic artery, if you see, it will give a branch which will run in the lower part of the greater curvature of stomach. This is called as the left gastroepiploic artery. So this is also a branch from the splenic artery from the celiac artery. So this is the left gastroepiploic artery, pass in the gastrosplenic ligament, and it will supply the middle part of the stomach. Then coming to the right gastroepiploic artery. Right gastroepiploic artery. It is coming from the gastroduodenal artery, which is again a branch from the hepatic artery, which in turn is a branch from the celiac artery. So the same celiac artery will give multiple branches. All these five arteries are either direct or indirect branches from the celiac trunk. Okay. So celiac artery gives rise to the hepatic artery. Hepatic artery gives rise to gastroduodenal artery. Gastroduodenal artery gives rise to this right gastroepiploic artery, which come along the the greater curvature near the lower part of the stomach, near the greater lower part of the greater curvature stomach, and there is anastomose with the left gastroepiploic artery. So both the right and left gastroepiploic artery, the anastomose with each other and supply the most of the body of the stomach, as well as even the pyloric antrum and canal. So this is the right gastroepiploic artery from the gastroduodenal artery of the hepatic. Okay. So passes to the left along the greater curvature. So these are the five arteries which will supply the stomach. One is the first one was the left gastric artery. The second was the right gastric artery. The third is there are multiple branches, short gastric arteries. The fourth is the left gastroepiploic artery, and the fifth is the right gastroepiploic artery. These are the five arteries supplying the stomach. Now coming to the venous drainage, the veins of the stomach. So all of them drain into a very important vein called as the portal vein. Portal vein, if you see here, there is a portal vein here. So portal vein is formed by the superior mesenteric vein joining with the splenic vein. Splenic vein, not the splenic artery. Splenic artery we saw before. Now this is the splenic artery. Just below that will be the splenic vein. Okay. So here, so the portal vein is formed by the joining of the superior mesenteric vein with the splenic vein. Okay. So these two artery veins join together and they open into a larger vein. This is called as the portal vein. Portal vein has a very important role again clinically, portal hypertension. Okay. So all of them drain into the portal circulation. The right and left gastric vein drain directly into the portal vein. If you see here, this is the right and left gastric veins both drain into the portal vein. The arteries and the veins have very similar names. Okay, so there was right and left gastric artery. Now here is the right and left gastric veins. Okay, so both these right and left gastric vein directly drains into the portal vein. Then the short gastric vein, just like the short gastric artery, now we have the short gastric vein drain into the splenic vein. Okay. Then the just like we had the left gastroepiploic artery, now we have the left gastroepiploic vein, which also drains into the spleen vein. Then we have the right gastroepiploic vein. Okay, so all these veins finally they all drain into the portal vein, either directly or through the indirectly. So they all drain finally into the portal vein. So as I said, the right gastroepiploic vein drains into the superior mesenteric vein initially, then finally it also drains into the portal vein. So this is the venous drainage. The arteries and veins have similar names. Okay, similar names. So just like the five arteries, there are five main veins. So finally, should remember they all drain into the portal vein or portal circulation. Now coming to the lymphatic drainage. Lymphatic drainage in case of stomach is very important. As you know, whenever we study the lymphatic drainage, this is mainly whenever we want to understand the spread of carcinomas. So whenever the stomach is very prone for carcinomas. So whenever there is carcinoma, this lymphatic drainage plays a very important role. So you should know what are the lymphatic areas where it will drain. Okay. So the lymphatic vessels follow the arteries. They first drain into the left and right gastric nodes. If you see here, just beside the gastric arteries, right and left gastric artery, there are small group of lymph nodes. Okay, so this will be the area for the drainage of the lesser curvature of the stomach. Okay, right and left gastric lymph nodes. Then the left and right gastroepiploic lymph node. Just like we had arteries and veins in the same area, there are the right and left gastroepiploic lymph nodes. So if you know the five arteries, then you know the five veins, then you know the lymphatic, most of the lymphatic drainage also, because the names are very similar. Okay. So this is the left gastroepiploic lymph nodes near the greater curvature and the right gastroepiploic lymph nodes. So you can easily identify if there is a carcinoma near the greater curvature, then it will usually drain into the right and left gastric lymph nodes, gastroepiploic lymph nodes, and if it is near the lesser curvature, it will usually drain into the right and left gastric lymph nodes. Okay. Then there are short gastric lymph nodes. If there is any carcinoma near the fundus, usually it initially drains. All these they drain initially into their regional areas. Finally, they all drain into the cilia group of lymph nodes. Okay. So ultimately, as I said, all the lymph from the stomach is collected at the cilia group of lymph nodes. So finally, it will all the right and left gastric lymph nodes, the right and left gastroepiploic lymph nodes, the short gastric lymph nodes, all will finally drain into the cilia group of lymph nodes. Initially, they are confined to that region, but later they spread to the cilia group of lymph nodes. Okay. Now coming to the nerve supply. Nerve supply is mainly by the vagal trunks, the right and left vagus, which now here become the anterior and posterior vagus. Okay, uh, and as well as the this is the vagus is parasympathetic, as well as there will be supply from the sympathetic, which together form the autonomic nervous system. But the vagus has a very important role, clinical aspects, especially when we see. One is I said whenever there is carcinoma, so it will drain initially into this regional group of lymph nodes, finally into the celiac group of lymph nodes. So palpation is very impossible here. So whenever you take the X-rays, at that time you will try to identify if there is any enlargement of these group of X-rays or the CT scans, MRIs. Okay. The second important clinical aspect related to the nerve supply is whenever there is excessive secretion because of the stimulation of the vagus nerve, because the vagus nerve has very important role in the secretion of the gastric juices. So they do something called as vagotomy. Okay, so vagotomy also has actually evolved through times. Initially, they used to do truncale vagotomy. Now they do the selective vagotomy, or now it is called as the highly selective vagotomy, where they will cut the only part of the vagus nerve, which is helping in particular region secretion. If not, previously they used to do the total vagotomy. Okay, so that is why clinically the lymphatic drainage as well as the nerve supply is also very important. Similarly, even if you see clinically, the venous drainage is also very important, especially in case of the portal hypertension. Portal hypertension, if there is the liver cirrhosis, it leads to portal hypertension because the portal vein will be ultimately draining into the liver. So if there is any kind of disease of the liver, especially the cirrhosis, there will be backflow of the blood, and this will especially pass through the right and left gastric veins. Then the right and left gastric vein also drain the esophagus. So then it leads to backflow, and it leads to varices in the esophagus, which is called as esophageal varices. So there is a connection between the portal and the systemic veins in the esophagus, which leads to varicosity, and there can be severe vomiting of blood in case of the portal hypertension in later stages. Okay, so that's why clinically this also venous drainage is also very important. So clinically, lymphatic drainage, nerve supply, as well as the venous drainage is very important. Now coming to the development of the stomach. So briefly here we will discuss the development of the stomach. Later we'll have a separate class where we'll in detail study the development of the whole GIT as well as the stomach. So as I said before, this stomach develops from the foregut. So it is part of the foregut. At first, it is simple tube which has an ante and posterior border. If you see, initially it will be just like any other part of the GIT long tube. Okay, so it will have an anterior border and a posterior border behind. So this will be called as anterior border and the posterior border. Then it has the right and left surfaces. If you see, this will be called as the right surface. This will be called as the left surface. It is attached to the anterior posterior abdominal wall by the ventral and dorsal mesogastrium. There is a fold of peritoneum attached to the anterior part of the stomach to the anterior abdominal wall, that is called as the ventral mesogastrium. Then there will be one behind, that will be called as the dorsal mesogastrium. This is very important because later after development, the ventral gastrium will mesogastrium will form the lesser omentum, and the dorsal mesogastrium will become the greater omentum. How it changes, how it forms, you will study when you study development completely. Okay. The posterior border develops faster than the anterior border. If you see here, this anterior border, it grows slowly, but the posterior border grows faster. Now it is rotating, later it rotates. So if you see here, this is the anterior border grows slowly, but the posterior border grows faster. Okay, so that's why there will be, if you see, it grows faster and faster to form the fundus and the main part of the body. Okay, so that's why there is difference in the development of the anterior border and the posterior border. Posterior border develops faster than the anterior border, so it gives rise to the greater curvature of the stomach. While its anterior border gives rise to the lesser curvature. This doesn't grow much, so it is called as the lesser curvature. Now the stomach rotates 90 degrees. If you see here, this is called as the rotation. Initially, this is the anterior border. Now the anterior border has gone this side because of the rotation of the stomach. Okay, this is 90-degree rotation. So the greater curvature moves to the left. Okay, so initially the greater curvature is behind. It is the posterior border. Now it has moved because of the 90-degree rotation. The anterior border has gone towards the right side. This is now it is called as the right border instead of the anterior border. Now it is called as right border. The posterior border will become the left border. So then the right surface becomes the posterior surface. Left surface becomes the anterior. This becomes the anterior surface. With the left surface, now it has become the anterior surface because of the rotation, 90-degree rotation. Okay, so here you can see again. So this is the ventral mesentery, this is the dorsal mesentery. Now with rotation, if you see here, it has gone towards the right side. Ventral mesentery becomes the right mesentery or lesser curvature. Okay, mesentery is the peritoneal fold which form the lesser omentum, and this anterior border, which is just behind that, will form the right border. The posterior border, which is near the dorsal mesentery. Dorsal mesentery, as I said, will form the greater omentum. The posterior border, now it has moved towards the left side, and this forms the greater curvature. This is because of the 90-degree rotation. You have to imagine how the wing rotates. As I said, the dorsal mesentery, here is the dorsal mesentery, now it has towards the left side, form the greater omentum. The lesser curvature moves to the right. As I said, the ventral mesentery form the lesser omentum. So here this is the ventral mesentery, now it's formed the lesser omentum. So this is all about the development. You will study much more of the in detail of the development when we study. We have a separate class for that, where we will study the whole development of the stomach as well as the other part of the GIT. So if you have any questions regarding any part of the stomach, especially the anatomy of the stomach, its blood supply, venous drainage, lymphatic vein, nerve supply, parts, anything, you can just ask me. So do you have any questions regarding the stomach?
All clear, doctor. Thank you.
Okay, just wait, let me take the picture. Okay. So if you have any questions, you can ask me anytime. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the patient here.